Hey, all you Outshiners. Welcome to the question and answer for the House of Cardin. We hope you enjoyed the film as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. And we look forward to talking to director, producers P. David Ebersole and Todd Hughes. Joining us, I was going to say poolside, but it's actually from the pool.
In the pool.
In Palm Springs. Welcome.
Aloha.
It's too hot in Palm Springs. We have to be in the pool.
I was just going to say it's necessary. So we appreciate it. We're happy you're joining us wherever it's from. So thank you so much for being here. First of all, how have you been navigating this? Oh, and we have a special guest.
That's Fido.
Oh, hi, Fido.
Oops, he just fell in the pool if we were laughing when we came in.
All right. Well, and succeeded to get out of the pool. As I was saying, it's sort of a crazy time we live in, not only as individuals, but also as filmmakers. Where was the film in the process? I think you were about to release or you had started a release. So sort of...
it's really odd because we've been so lucky. This whole thing has kind of been divine, right? Everything just happened. And we premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and Pierre Cardin was born in Venice 1 year ago in September. And the film took us 2 years exactly to make. But so then, we had our US premiere at the Chicago Film Festival. We were feted in Iceland. So we were starting our festival run, and we were about to embark on our world tour. And we were in Valenciennes in the north of France when the lockdown started. And literally, we were at this festival, and we arrived, and they put us in this room. They said, "Oh, you're here. Quick, stand over here." And we start talking to this Italian guy, and we're like, "Wait, isn't Italy shut down?" He said, "Well, I know very important people." And they said, "Oh, yes, this is Vittorio Storaro." We're like, "Oh, excuse us." And they said, "This is Nastasia Kinski." And she was like, "Oh, I want to kiss you, but mwah, mwah." Our film screened the next morning at 11 a.m. We went to lunch. They reported someone at the festival had COVID. The festival shut down.
And that's right when Trump announced that he was shutting down all travel. And so we realized we had to get out of France. We got in at 10 p.m. to LAX when
Friday the 13th of March.
Travel was shutting down at midnight. And so we waltzed right through the airport, no problem. And then the next day we saw all those lines of people being stuck in Chicago, stuck everywhere, trying to get out of Europe.
We put all our beautiful suits we had just purchased for our tour into the closet. And luckily we had shot our next documentary, and we weren't planning on working on it, but we're done. And
we're at Rough Cut now.
In our new subject, it's about Trini Lopez, the singer, and he tragically died last week of COVID.
So.
Yeah, that's crazy sort of, layers on things. So it sounds like you were able to enjoy some of the fruits of your labor. And I know coming up, you're going to have a virtual release of the film, so it will still get out there.
And House of Cardin was always meant to come out in the fall. So it was scheduled
We're
for
still
August,
on schedule.
Yeah, scheduled for August, September, October worldwide. And then home video was supposed to be holiday, but now home video has been moved up. So October 13th is when the collectible DVD comes out, and we start streaming September 15th. Like, everything got accelerated.
Sure. How do you find your subjects? Do projects come to you? Do you find projects? Because you always have such great Jane Mansfield and Cher, and
aside from
just really great subject.
Jane Mansfield is really the only one that we had already, that we initiated. Because the first one we did was Hit So Hard, which was about Patty Schemmel, who was our neighbor in Silver Lake and our friend. And then we found out, not only was she the drummer of Hole, but she lived with Kurt and Courtney, and what a story that turned out to be.
And ended up homeless on the streets of LA from her life kind of falling apart before she got everything back together. So she was just a great story. And she asked us if we would do her documentary. And that was our first doc. We had been narrative filmmakers before that for however many years.
And then we lucked out because a lady named Cher saw Hit So Hard. And she thought we did a good job and could do one about her mother.
We keep imagining Cher sitting in her Malibu mansion watching Hit So Hard on her big screen downstairs in her screening room, where when we did actually get to visit Cher's house and hang out there, we saw like she has a whole kind of like mani-pedi set downstairs in her screening room. So she's down there, like, doing her nail, and making sure everything's okay.
We were calling Patty, like, guess who watched your movie last night? Who? She only has one name. Madonna. No. Beyonce. No. That Courtney Love crazy as batshit.
But you do such a good job of like illuminating these people and sort of highlighting the intricacies of their lives, yet they're real people, and I think you do a great job of sort of doing that, of making these people who are bigger than life sort of real life. Is that conscious, or does that come out of the work? Do you make a conscious effort to do that?
We always say that these people, they're just real people. When you meet them, Courtney Love is a very cool, smart, unique individual, and Cher makes you feel comfortable. So they just are extraordinary human beings when you meet them. So their talent, the things that they've done.
Cher is protesting to save the post office today. She's so cool.
Right. So, it's usually when they are great, they make you feel at ease. So they make our lives a lot easier. The person who really kind of made my knees weak for a moment, because we've interviewed a lot of celebrities at this point, in House of Cardin, is Dionne Warwick, because she came in with a shoulder to floor fur coat. It was New York in the winter, and those cheekbones just like rising up to the sky, and that voice that comes out of her that we grew up on. And for a moment, I was kind of like, like, how do I talk to Dionne Warwick? And then before you know it, you're sitting down and you're having a conversation, and you're talking to them about something they love. Like, she loves Pierre Cardin, and off you go.
Do you find it, or do you think it might be more difficult to do something where people tend to be more familiar with the subject? Like, people do know Cher, people do know Cardin, and they can easily say, well, that's not the way it was.
Right. Like that they're fans, right? That there are true fans who what I find is that there are expectations from fans. And so you kind of have to hit the greatest hits. Sometimes you think the greatest hits are for the people who don't know anything about them, but the fans want to see Cher say snap out of it or whatever. They're like, you have a certain obligation to portray their heroes in the way that that they love. And with Cardin, you can't go into this movie and not show all that incredible space age fashion. You can't talk about him without talking about pret-a-porter and opening up the diversity of the runway. Like, there are all these things that people who do know his story want to see, but those are also the things that people need to learn about if they don't know about him. So I find the fans are often the ones that are enjoying the weird little nuggets that you find, as opposed to like arguing over what you do or don't say.
But as two homosexuals, I have to say, we knew nothing. I didn't know anything about Hole or Patty's whole story. David knew more about it. When we took on Cher's mother, we didn't know her story at all. We didn't know a lot of Cher's story. And certainly when we met Pierre Cardin, we were fans. We didn't know anything about him. We didn't even know he was a real person. And so
which is true.
So as everything Cardin, it was just fate that brought us to the Musée Cardin in Paris when we were making Mansfield. And we walked in and found out he was a real person, and he was 95 years old. And someone told us how to run into him. And so, we're not afraid of stalking people.
Because beyond whether or not understanding whether or not he's alive, which we did not know, but he's like one of those people, his name is a brand, and you're like, well, is it a made up name?
It's like Betty Crocker.
To make us think like, oh, this fancy French name is something that I want to buy product from. I mean, even Hugo Boss, is something that's a brand from so far long ago, it actually is even associated back to the Nazis. So you're sort of like, people don't necessarily, just because somebody is a designer doesn't necessarily mean that they are associated to the brand that you're thinking of. So we didn't really picture him. And when I started the film, did not know what Pierre Cardin looked like. When you think about Karl Lagerfeld, when you think about Calvin Klein, those kind of people, they put themselves front and center, and you really had a sense of like their personalities. But Cardin was not going to Studio 54.
Also, we were not fashionistas. So
we barely wear clothes.
we barely wear clothes. But, Pierre Cardin, it's still hard to grasp. He's the last living couturier from the golden age of French fashion. This guy opened the house of Dior. And you think about Dior and Chanel, and you just think, God, they must have been 100 years ago, but they weren't. And Pierre worked with all of them.
Yeah.
And when we started working with him and developing this appreciation for these guys, we're like, God, we've lost him. Yves Saint Laurent had died a while ago, but Courrèges died right then, and Givenchy died right then. Jean Moreau died right then.
Azzedine Alaïa.
Azzedine Alaïa, who we had on film, died shortly thereafter. And so we just didn't even realize what kind of arena we had entered with Pierre Cardin, who is such an unsung member of this club, right? With these
club,
names that are just so iconic. And
He's
everyone
top of the pile.
in America thinks he sold out, and everyone everywhere else in the world, still thinks he's this incredible person.
I hear you talk with affection about it, and not knowing much going into it, is even more special to me. Was there something that particularly endeared you to him as you were going through it and understanding and developing the story?
Well, he's so kind, and also he's very funny. So spending time with him, his sense of humor just kind of rolled out on you, and you're kind of expecting one of those fashion divas. When you think like those kinds of names that I was talking about, you're expecting that you're going to be greeted with this larger than life, untouchable, godlike figure. And instead, he's just a guy who works really hard and has a lot of great taste and has made these great designs through his, trajectory of his life. So he was just nice.
That said, too, we proceeded to spend a year with him on and off. But you become part of the family. And it really is like Maurice and Jean-Pascal, these people you get to know and be friends with.
Yeah.
And then you meet his other licensees from China, from Japan. And it's almost like we're all part of the same cult at this point, because we just adore him and we compare notes. And
Todd's wearing cult glasses at the moment.
These are brand new Pierre Cardin.
Yeah.
Love that.
By Rodrigo, his beautiful nephew.
I've heard, it may be a rumor, but I think I read that there was you had 3 hours of footage and you gave to your editor.
Yeah.
A 3-hour cut.
And we told Mel, oh my God, just do something. It's just too long. It's just too much. And
but
so
then did you shut the booth and go, or were you still, there involved? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah.
I mean, it was here at our house. So
Mel actually, we had them move in with us, which was not a good idea. But no, because we spent that whole summer, it was so many languages and so much computer problems, right, with subtitles and
yeah,
and all that material, and it really felt like a sculpture that you just kept rearranging, and the time was really killing us. And Mel said, "Go away," and we did an overnight, over 2 nights.
Yeah,
they cut it down, and we watched it, and we went, "Oh my God, it's in the ballpark
towards a movie, right?"
But
because
it's so narrow.
At 3 hours, it's just that it was overwhelming. It's just
exhausting.
Cardin has done so much and over so much of a span of time that it just became like too many details, too many things to think about, and your mind just couldn't take.
Also,
it all
reading
in.
subtitles for that long was just exhausting.
Was hard. Yeah, it was like the Shoah of fashion documentaries. And so we were kind of like, maybe it should be closer to 90 minutes. And so we just said to Mel, what? Do anything. Just bring it towards 90 minutes. And then, of course, we know the footage and we know the story so well that we could say, okay, that's great, but we need this back, so I'd rather lose that than this, et cetera. And so then you start the process. But at least it was closer to, what it needed to be.
We've never really worked like this because, we had to have at least 5 editors on board who spoke all the different languages. So we had an Italian. Everyone on our crew was bilingual. But someone had to speak Italian. We had a woman in Brooklyn. Also, we could work remotely.
Yeah.
Which is so COVID. But so we had a woman in Brooklyn who was doing all our Chinese for us. Mel did the Japanese. Brad Comfort spoke
Spoke
French.
the French really well and could handle the Italian.
And so, it was really, we never worked with so many people. And we had all the people transcribing and putting the subtitles on, because everything we did that wasn't English had to be subtitled. That was a lot of footage.
One of the things I found fascinating, besides the film as a whole, is that it really was such a good blend about the man, Pierre Cardin, and the brand. Was that difficult to sort of figure out, how to make that, a nice split? And it really was. So
it wasn't particularly difficult, but it was the thing to wrestle with. It was like what we wanted the movie to be about from the get-go, when we really realized that as people who loved his design, we knew nothing about him. We didn't, like I say, we didn't even necessarily know what he looked like. We didn't know his trajectory. We didn't know all the things that he had gone through. So we had this incredible access to him today as a human being that you could follow around at 90 plus years old and have him present. So that was a lot of what we wanted. So this doc, compared to some of the other ones that we've done, has a lot of verite in it, because we wanted to show him today and just get that weird little sense that you get of somebody when you see them say hello to somebody in the street, or be kind to students, or all the different little things that he does inside of the movie. And then we also knew there is this big story to tell that you can't get away from.
And also, part of the 3-hour cut that was easy to get rid of was the catalog. We're fans, so we're like, oh, we have to show this and we have to show that. He designed 4 cars. We had every car covered. He had a record label. We went into detail about that. And then we went, you fanboys have to step aside, because we've discovered this man, this father figure to all these people, to culture, that was just fascinating. And then we had all that archival. And then when we realized, God, he's been telling the same story for 70 years on film, and we can now chop that up,
assemble it together,
throw chronology to the wind, and let him really go on the strength of his different disciplines, his fashion, his theater, his love life, whatever.
And that really came together. Our producer, Corey Coppola, was watching the film with our sales agent in France, the 3-hour cut. And they came up with the idea that we did not have to be chronological. They said it would be a more interesting film if you stuck to his kind of concepts like that, like fashion, design, globalism, personal life, etc. And once we had that kind of as a guiding principle, then the movie just started to come together.
You typically direct and produce yourselves, as opposed to having others. Not that you don't have other people involved, because obviously you've talked about those people. But how is that to sort of be your own director and producer? Because that isn't that rare, or it isn't that usual. It is fairly rare.
Right. I guess we each have different skills. And when we started, we really thought, it was important to, in public perception, wear different hats. So we used to call Todd the producer and call me the director, and we sort of proceeded from that. But we were always overlapping in everything that we did. Hit So Hard is equally directed by Todd as it is by me. So
likewise produced.
And so then we just sort of said, well, I don't know why we're delineating in that way. So what was it, Mansfield, when we finally said, let's just say we both do both. We have different things that we're great at, and different things that we're very bad at.
But
so it's sort of like, oh, that's yours, and push it over on the other side of the table.
I will tell you, though, we're not getting rich, because we are still independent, and independent documentary is certainly a dying thing with Netflix, right? Who won't touch independent film with a 10-foot pole at this point. But we've just been so lucky that we have been able to do these things. And when we do have to answer to a higher power like Lifetime, generally it's always great give and take. We always have worked with intelligent people who give us really good notes. Mansfield, we had complete freedom, which is why that's the
insane.
Most over the top. And even when we finished, our distributor pleaded with us to remove some of the dance.
some of the interpretive dance.
And we did.
But why? Why doesn't the audience want to see more interpretive dance?
I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
More interpretive dance, a whole movie of interpretive dance.
There is the director's cut of that movie that has all of the
And the experimental film.
And the experimental film, the experimental, more of the performance art parts of it, the weird, singers and all of that.
We'll talk later.
Sales people asked us to please tone down just a little.
Can you get rid of it completely?
I think your sales and your video request for that may have just gone up because I think
right. We should do the director's version of that, like the insane director's version.
Well, luckily we've been able to create, like, we've been doing this for 10 years now, which is kind of shocking to us.
Documentary, yeah.
But Hit So Hard now, it's just such a thrill. It was in a montage of queer cinema, and
by IMDb, yeah.
By IMDb, and then it's now often cited as one of the grunge classics, and so many letters we've gotten from people, and they use it in therapy and rehab. So
it's very touching, yeah, when your movie kind of lives on in its own way away from you. Like, we do all of our time being promosexuals and trying to make everybody see your movie, post again, do something else, try to make people know that your movie is out there. And then when it just kind of has its own legs and it does its own thing, it's funny because Dear Mom Love Share just got picked up to be the kind of free, when you watch those late night commercials, and they're like, and you get Ginsu knives for free. Like, we're the free DVD
if you
in
the next 12 minutes. You get a nice bonus DVD.
We're like, it's prepackaged. It's already wrapped in plastic, and you're going to get it whether you order in 12 minutes or 4 days. Like, believe me. But it becomes kind of fun that your movies take on this life and start belonging to some other, it's fun.
And Pierre Cardin, the Venice Film Festival with Pierre Cardin was such a fantasy. And, that's, how can you top that?
Yeah, that was a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pierre afforded us some of the most glamorous moments of our lives.
Good. We all need those glamour moments. Do you think you'll stay? You've sort of, as you mentioned, the last 10 years sort of been in this documentary. Do you see yourself sort of staying there? Would you like to possibly do some narrative work?
We're dying to go back to narrative.
Yeah.
And we're dying to do some other projects that we've had cooking.
We've got a project right now that's a script that I wrote. It's called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And we've been going out to actors, and we have a producer that's involved that's been really kind of championing the project. And so we're hoping that one kind of gets legs and that we can go out and shoot when we're allowed to shoot. So we're aiming for first quarter of 2021. And then there's also things like, we love the Hit So Hard story, and Patty wrote a book after we were done making the movie that we think would make a fantastic film. So we've been sort of working on that, trying to put it together. And Trini Lopez has a book written. I mean, he just passed away, and he wrote his own autobiography right before he died. It's unpublished. So beyond the documentary, we're thinking maybe there's some kind of a narrative project inside of that. So even from the documentaries and spinning off into narrative, we think about the possibilities of it. It'd be very fun. Very fun to get back to it.
We're very good friends with Mary Warnoff. We've been friends with her for a very long time. And we know Joe D'Alessandro. We've known them for like 20 years. And we just met Viva here in Palm Springs. So when you have that kind of combo, and Udo, and Cherry Vanilla.
Yeah.
And we're like, and they're so great. And, they're these icons that have nothing. The Warhol Museum just rakes in the dough, and they're on T-shirts and have nothing.
Right.
So we'd love to do something.
We have an idea for a documentary called The 16th Minute, which is what all of these Warhol superstars have kind of done in living on after their 15 minutes, and who they are today, and how they get by. So there's always projects kind of that you're thinking about, and some of it is that narrative just takes so much money all at once to make it happen, and documentary is so fluid. It's about access and enough money to go out and do a few interviews. And so you start going, you get your interviews, you start collecting things, and then it gets more expensive as you get into the post-production process and have to start hiring people. But even like, we can edit ourselves. So like
we can
with the Trini Lopez documentary, we stayed. Right.
hit so hard. We shot a lot
It
of that
allows you to
ourselves.
just be very DIY and make a movie, or find funding and do it where you get to hire everybody and sit back and be directors. So we've had both experiences, and narrative is a big bang. You've got to get your 3 million, 5 million, 15 million all together at once to step on set for day one.
Yeah. Well, whatever you do, we look forward to it. So keep doing your work. Sort of personal question that I'm sure you've been asked before. You are married. So how is it to work together, live together, be together? Some people would not be able to do that. If their hair would be gone. Oh.
I don't know. We really enjoy each other.
Yeah.
We have a pretty good time.
We're best friends. We've been together. This is going on 30 years, 29 years this December. So we met when we were little puppies. We've been together a long time, know each other really well. We've been through, the ins and the outs of it, but we work together really well. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we know how to support each other to do it. So it's just been kind of fun.
And yet things still emerge that you never knew about. Like, it was 7 years we were together before I discovered he co-starred with Paula Abdul in a movie when he was a teenager.
See, you got to keep mysteries.
Exactly.
Or that I auditioned to replace Danny Terrio on Dance Fever. See?
To many more discoveries. As we leave, we need to wind down. Tell us a little bit about Trini. You've sort of mentioned, that it was coming up. What state is it in? What is sort of the thrust? Is it an overview? Is it a certain time period in his life?
Well, we met Trini. He lives here in Palm Springs, and we met him a couple years ago while we were doing Cardin. And oh my God, so this guy is the child of illegal Mexican immigrants who came across the border in the 50s and settled in Dallas. Trini and all his siblings were born in the United States. And this guy fought his way out of the ghetto with a guitar and just skyrocketed to fame, but never allowed himself to be anglicized. They tried to change his name from Lopez. Trini they were fine with, but Lopez they wanted changed. And his friend Richard Valenzuela had just died, also known as Richie Valens. And he replaced Buddy Holly in the Crickets. He's like one of those Forrest Gump guys that
has been everywhere.
And then Frank Sinatra discovered him, and he became part of the Rat Pack. And so it's a very interesting story too, because here's Sinatra with Sammy and Trini telling America they're part of my gang, and then just stuff you really start to realize how not far this country has come. It's kind of shocking.
And he's a great story, and he's an inspirational story, and that we have it in our computer is just kind of shocking. So because he went into the hospital on the night that we were supposed to show him the Rough Cut, August 1st, and then 10 days later we lost him, and that we have his life story in this sort of beautifully filmed, beautifully told way, we're really excited about, but because it means that people can get to see who he is. But it's at an advanced rough cut stage right now. We're kind of trying to speed it up a little bit because he passed away. We would have been thinking about it for early next year, maybe. He's born in Texas, so maybe south by 2021. But
he also designed
a little faster.
He designed a guitar for Gibson, which Dave Grohl plays, so he has this cult following amongst guitar nerds as well.
Yeah, Oasis and Paul McCartney's guitarist plays his guitars. So there's a whole guitar part of it as well.
And he died at 83 and spoke English, and we were like, oh God, this is going to be such a breeze after the nonagenarian who didn't speak English.
Yeah.
Well, all of your work is amazing. We look forward to Trini. Thank you so much for bringing us up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe.
Good luck to everything you do. For those of you who might be seeing us before you see the film, it is available through Wednesday, so make sure you watch it. And thank you for being here again. Swim away. Swim away. Thank you, Outshiners. We'll catch you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Dans mon occupation préféré, travail.
Pierre Cardin is one of the greats. It looks like it's from today.
You know, it's very important that he was the first designer to get into diversity because designers have that power to globally inspire millions of people.
How many $1 million did this man make last year? His name is Pierre Cardin.
He was a futurist in the way the designs looked. He was a futurist in his idea of how fashion can be a business. He was a futurist in his all-encompassing, all-embracing idea of art and performance art and architecture.
Vu mon âge, vous comprenez, j'ai travaillé avec beaucoup de comédiens. Et je les ai respectés, je les ai admirés, et je les ai habillés et déshabillés. Moi, j'aime un homme quand il est viril et j'aime une femme quand elle est féminine. J'aime l'eau ou le vin, mais pas le vin mélangé à l'eau.
Il disait toujours avoir des rêves immenses pour être sûr de ne pas les perdre de vue. Et je pense que ça lui va très bien.
Qu'il voulait toucher beaucoup de monde. Le monde entier, en plus, lui. C'est un empereur, quoi. C'est un empereur total.
Un fil Young.